of learning the sport of rock climbing has changed considerably in past decades. While 20 years ago, the first steps toward climbing were taken almost exclusively on natural rock surfaces, on crags, also called climbing gardens. Nowadays, the beginner uses mainly an indoor climbing gym, available at all times and in any weather. Always safe but still exciting. Eventually, however, almost every one of those indoor climbers feel the urge to combine climbing fun with nature. They want to swap the plastic grips for the varied structures of real rock and not be limited by the ceiling, but rather view the unending sky above them and experience the impressive feeling of looking down from on high. Because there are so many climbing gardens and well-established climbing crags about, the first step out of the climbing gym and onto the rocks, apart from the journey to get there, is nowadays easy. The electromagnetic force works between any two things that have electric charge. The more charge, the stronger the force. And like gravity, the force depends on the separation between the objects. The further they are apart, the weaker the force. But unlike gravity, electromagnetism can be both attractive and repulsive. It can pull things together and push them apart. Opposite charges, one positive, the other negative, attract. Like charges, both positive or both negative repel. This means that a composite object that has an equal amount of positive and negative charge will push and pull in equal amounts, and consequently experience and exert no electromagnetic force at all. This balance, the result of charge neutrality, can never happen with gravity. There being no negative mass, there is no possibility of a mass-neutral object. You can't neutralize gravity as you can the electromagnetic force. This is why it is ever present in our experiences. The skills exhibited in golf are based on our unique physical ability to maintain a highly stable upright stance, while the arms and upper body perform powerful athletic tasks. This allowed our earliest ancestors to throw stones and swing sticks with great precision, and later to wield hammers, axes, and even golf clubs with precise purpose. Children as young as 4 have an innate ability to perform these tasks. Some with exceptional athletic ability can drive a golf ball after watching a skilled golfer perform the task. Most can throw balls quite accurately underarm. By the age of 6, without instruction, they naturally apply a stiff arm swing, thereby reducing the number of degrees of freedom for increased repeatability when asked to throw underarm at targets. A precisely repeatable swing is of course of little value without the stability of the stance. In fact, none of the primates with much greater strength and agility, but without a stable upright stance, can accomplish any of these tasks. This is the essence of the golf swing and the putting swing. The U.S. federal government and every state have separate written constitutions that set forth the organization, powers, and limits of their respective governments. Constitutional law is the law expressed in those constitutions. State constitutions vary. Some are modeled closely after the U.S. Constitution, and others provide even greater rights to their citizens. The U.S. Constitution, the supreme law of the United States, was adopted in 1787 by representatives of the 13 newly formed states. Initially, people expressed fear that the federal government might abuse its power. To alleviate such concerns, the first Congress approved 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, commonly known as the Bill of Rights, which were adopted in 1791. The Bill of Rights limits the powers and authority of the federal government and guarantees many civil individual rights and protections. There is a problem with skimpy eating. The body gets ready to take maximal advantage of any food source it finds. When food becomes available, there is a tremendous tendency to binge, in what is known as the restrained eater phenomenon. You know the pattern. You have been dieting for several days, and suddenly someone brings home a carton of ice cream. A little bit won't hurt, you decide, and before you know it, you are scraping the bottom of the carton and digging around the cracks for every last bit. You then scold yourself for your lack of willpower. The truth is that the problem was not willpower at all, but the innate biological programming of the human body. The diet turned on the anti-starvation plan that is built into every human being. Your body assumed that any food in front of you might be the only caloric source you might have for a while, so it demanded a binge. The world has done basically nothing to address climate change. The reasons are obvious. The threat of climate change is really a threat to future generations, not the present one. So actions taken by our generation will mostly benefit them and not us. Moreover, such actions may be expensive. Reducing emissions means rebuilding our energy infrastructure, and we have no idea how much that will cost. In such a situation, it is easiest to do nothing and wait for disaster to strike, which is why dams are frequently built after the flood, not before. Nevertheless, pushing this problem off onto future generations is a poor strategy. The impacts of climate change are global and mainly irreversible. By the time we have unambiguous evidence that the climate is changing and its impacts are serious, it will be too late to avoid these serious impacts. The only hope that future generations have to avoid serious climate change is us.